friend Shirkus here from Shirkus.com. Thank you so much for joining me today. I have a wicked spooky creation to share with you. My friend Shari and I challenged each other to both use Tim Holtz's stamp set, Sketch Manor, that has a spooky haunted house on it, and create something. So we're both sharing our projects today. All the supplies that I'm using are listed below in the comments section, but just a quick run through. I'm using the Sizzix Branch Birch die. I'm using one of Tim Holtz's script stencils. Also, along with that Sketch Manor stamp set, I'm using the Tiny Text Halloween stamp set from Tim Holtz. And then I'm using one of his framed panels. These panels come in two pieces where you have the frame and you have the backboard to be able to decorate. So let's get started. I am going to start by taking some Distress Grit Paste and brush it through this script stencil from Tim Holtz. You could use the grit paste, you could use the texture paste. I really wanted it to be super gritty and grungy and spooky. So I'm just adding a little bit of grit paste here and there to lay down some of the stencil. I'm going to set that aside to dry. And now with some black soot distress paint, I am painting the frame. Takes a minute to get into all those little grooves, but the distress paint really does give a good coverage all along the frame. And what's also nice about distress paints is they react with water, very similar to the ink pads, which you'll see in just a minute when I start to paint my background. The distress paints are also going to dry really quickly, and I'm only going to need one coat, which is really nice. Starting with the background, the Distress Grit Paste also dries really quickly, and I pulled a couple colors of distress paints. I don't really end up using all of them, but I pulled Seedless Preserves, which is what I'm painting right now, Fossilized Amber, and Spice Marmalade. You can see I'm painting on that Seedless Preserves. There's still a little bit of black paint in my brush, which I actually like. I was adding a distress sprayer to add some water and really move that paint around. Now I'm taking some of the Spice Marmalade and just adding a little bit on the edges, framing it in a bit, blending it into the Seedless Preserves, just again to add some dimension. I really liked how the black paint looked with the purple paint, so I put some at the top and used my distress sprayer and spritzed down, or spritzed at the top so the drips would drip down. I love how this looks. Blotted off the extra paint at the bottom with my kitchen cloth, and throughout this process, you're going to see me take the frame and line it up against the project because it's kind of tricky to see what it's really going to look like. Now I've die cut out a stitched hillside out of the Tim Holtz Mixed Media Heavy Stock cardstock, and I'm just spreading some more of that grit paste onto it and setting it aside to dry. Using my mini Misty, I took out the rubber part, which is in your Misty since the Tim Holtz stamps come with the rubber and the cling. And on some distressed watercolor cardstock, I am stamping with a black soot archival pad. The black soot archival pad is a really nice true black. I think sometimes with the jet black archival, you get a little bit of a purple hue. And I created my own full-size ink pad by purchasing a do-it-yourself empty archival pad and the black soot archival re-inker. So this is very different than the black soot distress ink, but it does all coordinate and it's a really nice crisp black. I also stamped the moon on some distressed watercolor cardstock, and now I'm stamping the cloud 3 times on some heavyweight vellum. Again, using that black soot archival ink, it will dry on vellum, which is really nice. Now I'm going to do some watercoloring. I am using a half sheet of cardstock here that I have laminated. I use this as my palette, and I'm just pressing some distress inks onto the palette, and I am watercoloring with these distress inks. This is my most favorite way of watercoloring. And so I'm starting off with the moon with a little bit of fossilized amber. You saw I zapped it with the heat tool just to be able to go back in and add another layer of fossilized amber on those little craters to make them a bit darker. Now I'm watercoloring in the haunted house. This is what started it all. Shari and I both fell in love with this haunted house image, and I love that we're challenging each other to both use it on a project or a card, and I can't wait to see what she has to post. This is a very easy image to color. I'm just using some vintage photo, seedless preserves, and hickory smoke. The image has a lot of shadow and depth to it on its own. So I really am not doing anything fancy. I'm just coloring inside the lines, mixing, different places, coloring it with the vintage photo and other places coloring it with the seedless preserves. It is a haunted house. It can be whatever I want it to be. So again, I'm coloring this watercolor style on the smooth side of distress watercolor cardstock. That is my most favorite, my only used watercolor cardstock that I use. I don't use any other kind. I really like that it's affordable. I like that it's a true white. And I like that one side is textured and the other side is smooth. So I can choose whichever I want depending on the project I'm working on. Once I finished watercoloring the haunted house, I'm going to go ahead and fussy cut it out of the cardstock. And I'm pretty sure I just heard all of you groan. Uh, I know not everybody loves fussy cutting, but this actually was a really easy image to fussy cut. There was just a few little places up at the top of the roof that took a little bit of finagling, but the rest were all pretty much straight cuts and it went by fairly quickly. I love these Fiskars Spring Action Scissors. And you'll see when I'm fussy cutting out, I'm moving the cardstock. I'm not really moving my scissors much at all. And that's really the trick to it. Once I got the haunted house cut out, I'm also going to be cutting out the moon and then also cutting out the clouds. I decided I did not like the little bit of white edge that I left when I fussy cut it. So I took some hickory smoke distress ink and ink blended all of the edges. And I loved how this came out. It really shadowed it and gave it some depth and dimension and got rid of those white edges. So I'm doing the same thing with the moon as well, grunging it up a bit and making it look even more spooky. Okay, now I have that tiny text Halloween stamp set. I'm not even bothering to take it off the backing. I'm just keeping it whole, inking it up with some of that black soot archival ink and pressing some of that mixed media heavy stock onto it. I snipped out some of the sayings. I like to kind of call this word fetty, where it looks almost like a ransom note. I did it really rough with my scissors, and I'm grunging it up with some hickory smoke cardstock as well. Now I'm fussy cutting out these 3 clouds out of the vellum. Again, just setting these aside for a few minutes. That was how they were able to dry because I used that archival ink to stamp them on the vellum. A lot of this is just kind of prep work. I'm not even 100% sure I'm going to be using all of these elements on my final project, but I wanted to have a bunch of things to kind of play with as I start to assemble it. Now I have some of the typography Halloween acrylic letters, and I am taking them, I'm adding a little bit of Distress Collage medium onto them, and I'm dipping them into some ultrafine black glitter, trying to glitz them up a bit, but add a little bit of more texture to them as well. I'm just adding that Distress Collage medium right to it and dipping it in, and then setting the letter aside to dry. I just love how these are turning out. They're like so spooky, so sparkly, and wicked fun. Once I get all of these letters all glittered, I'm going to just start to lay out my bits and pieces on the panel. I'm trying to figure out where everything is going to line up, where everything looks good, um, and just kind of start to figure things out. This that I'm adhering is that stitched hillside with the grit paste. Once it was dried, I did add a little bit of the black soot paint to it. So I got my spooky hillside. And now I'm going to put some pop dots on the haunted house to probably adhere it to the panel. But then I'm like, I actually want some more texture behind this haunted house. So I'm taking some of those word fetty sentiments from the Tiny Text Halloween stamp set, and I'm just adhering them to the back of the panel. I'm not really paying attention if they're going to be able to be read completely. Again, I just wanted some of that really spooky typography on the back panel. Once I've adhered these with the Distress Collage Medium, I'm actually going to put a little bit of the collage medium on my fingertips and kind of rub and press over the tops to kind of seal in the edges so that they won't go anywhere. Now I'm again just trying to figure everything out. I see the frame and the haunted house, and I love the haunted house so much, but it's just taking up a lot of space. So I decided to cut some of the haunted house off, which now I'm really, really loving how this is looking. And then I'm like, okay, where are the clouds going to go? And I start kind of figuring things out, but then I also get impatient and just start gluing things down. So I adhered one of the clouds going off the upper right hand side, and then I'm adhering the moon. And again, everything I'm using for adhesive is that Distress Collage Medium. And I'm totally okay if some of the glue is oozing out or sticking out, because once it dries, it's going to dry to a clear matte finish. So for anything that I popped up, like this haunted house, I'm going to reinforce the adhesive with some of that Distress Collage Medium. Since this is going to be a 3D item, something I envision I'll have up in my house during the Halloween season, I want to make sure none of it is really going to fall apart. I'm just trying to get that vellum to stick down and seeing where my frame is again, just kind of getting an idea. And now I'm going to start working on the sentiment of this project. Using the Tim Holtz cut out lower alphabet die, I die cut out the word wicked out of black craft foam and also this really fun orange sparkle cardstock. This is included in the Lawn Fawn Autumn Sparkle Cardstock Pack. And so what I'm doing is I'm adding the sparkle cardstock to the top of the craft foam with the Distress Collage Medium. This way it'll have some dimension and will be popped up off the project. And I really love that the edges are going to be black and then the top is going to be that orange sparkle, kind of going along with the black sparkle letters that are going to go on this as well. So I'm gluing all of those pieces together and I'm starting to figure out where the letters are going to fit within the frame. And I'm really trying to decide where the letters are going to go. I have these mini pumpkins I want to add to the project, and I'm just kind of moving things around and just deciding placement of things. Like I said, I didn't have a complete picture in my head when I went into this project. So it's a lot of playing and experimenting and trying things out. And that's what I really like about these 3D projects. So you can see me here just kind of bringing the black sparkle letters down, seeing again where the positioning of the letters will be. And I'm trying to be really fine tune it and figure it out. And then I decide, okay, forget that. Let's get the frame on here. And then I'll really be able to figure out how much space I have. This is some of the parts I didn't want to edit out of the video because I think it's helpful to see. that there is a lot of figuring out and changing and switching things up, and it doesn't always come out perfectly the first time. So just off camera there, I trimmed the extra part of the clouds, and then I put some collage medium onto the frame, placed the frame down, and then I realized there was this awkward gap to the left of the haunted house. And I also remembered I had pulled out the birch tree dies, and I was kind of thinking I was going to use them, and then I got away from using them. But I decided I cut two sets of them and adhered them on top of each other to make a really long tree, since the die is a lot shorter than this project. And now I have a spooky birch tree that kind of looks like it's in the foreground. And now that's filling in that awkward space that was to the left of the haunted house. So I put some more Distress Collage Medium onto the back of the frame, and I'm just kind of pressing that down and holding it into place. And then I'm back on the letters, and you can see I'm just diving in. I'm just adding Distress Collage Medium to the back of them, and I'm just starting to place them down. You will see, though, that I place the W on the left first, and then the D on the right next. So I'm kind of putting a left and a right, a left and a right, and then that way I can kind of move them around and make it so that it fits, since this word wicked is really filling the space. That's what's also nice about adding the Distress Collage Medium, is I will have some wiggle room. It's not going to dry right away, so I'll be able to kind of move the letters around a little bit. The E needed to be popped up, so I added a little pop dot behind the E. The D did not need to be popped up because it is partially on the frame. Most of you guys know I actually live in New England. I live on Cape Cod in Massachusetts. So wicked is actually part of my daily vocabulary. I don't even hear myself when I say it most of the time, but it's really fun this time of year where I have a perfect excuse to use the word wicked on my crafty projects. So now I'm adhering those black glittered letters with the Distress Collage Medium as well. I'm being fairly generous with the amount of Distress Collage Medium, just because these are acrylic pieces and I want to make sure that they stay on there. And when I glittered the pieces, I glittered the words a wee bit. So I thought I'd say a wee bit wicked. And I started placing those letters down and they just weren't working. So I decided to omit the possibility of using the word wee, and now it just says a bit wicked. And then I have a really fun sentiment here that I'm adding in as a focal point. I used a little bit of the pop dots and the collage medium. So it says a bit wicked in the middle of the night. And now I'm using the collage medium to add some of the mini pumpkins. Again, trying to figure out where I want to put them. And I decided I'm going to stack two of them together. Chris and I actually have two pumpkins stacked just like this on our front step this fall, and so that's kind of what inspired me. So here is that 3D project that I created. I just love how it came out. I love the purple and the orange and the yellow and the pops of glitter. It's just wicked fun, and I cannot wait to put it on display in our house and bring it out each Halloween to come. I hope this has inspired you. I hope you have a wicked happy Halloween, and thank you so much for watching. And if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up, and you can also subscribe below. Thank you so much, guys. Bye.